Now let's get into specifics about the authentic emerald tablet. The world of the emerald tablet. What is it exactly? It was created as a guide or framework for anyone beginning the art and science of alchemy or divine chemistry. It's written in the cryptic language of esoteric symbolism. Alchemists used secret and symbolic language because they needed to conceal their knowledge under a series of alchemical or magical symbols and devices. One reason they chose chemistry as a symbolism was because it was accepted by Christian theologians. The church had no direct opposition to the advancement of medical science. But by the Middle Ages, the church viewed metaphysical alchemy as blasphemous, and anyone practicing it could be punished, jailed, or put to death. Remember history about the Crusades and Inquisitions? It was serious if you got identified as someone who was not a believer. Hi, this is Reginald Martin, founder of Comedic-Centered Living. Through Comediphysics, research knowledge, and information, I help you break through negative programming that holds you back from becoming the best version of yourself. Today, we'll discuss an ancient piece of knowledge in the Hermetic and alchemical disciplines, the authentic emerald tablet. To help build your knowledge so that you can really understand what it is expressing, I'm going to share some background history and knowledge of Hermeticism. It's to set the stage for breaking it down and what it's saying and meaning. I'm going to break it down in a way that it will forever and consistently be Baroque. As you embark on this visual and intellectual journey through the video, I invite you to pay close attention to the curated images of the books and the enlightening quotes within them. Each piece has been carefully selected from over 25 years of my dedicated study, not just to inform, but to inspire your own journey of discovery. While I offer these insights freely, it's essential to recognize that this isn't just a regurgitation of the text. Instead, I strive to weave these learnings into a coherent narrative, helping illuminate connections perhaps not previously considered. This approach is rooted in the ancient Egyptian concept of ma'at, representing truth through inner subjective realizations. Similarly, the Greeks referred to this as gnosis, knowledge through intuitive understanding. If this video sparks any new ideas or perspectives that you find valuable, and you wish to support the continuation of this educational content, consider contributing through my Cash App at $KHUAKARU1. That's $KUAKARU1. Any support helps sustain this channel and allows me to share even more insights. View this video as a resource. I create my content to empower you. You become empowered by being knowledgeable yourself and gaining the ability to analyze what you're being told critically. That means my work as well. Truth does not have to hide, and it will eventually rise from any darkness. So let's explore the depths of knowledge and connect the dots of our collective understanding. Let's get started by setting the stage and helping build a foundation of knowledge about the origin of the real and authentic emerald tablet. The origin of Hermetic philosophy. The original emerald tablet is descended from an ancient philosophical metaphysics and science based on the idea of alchemy. Alchemy is closely associated with Hermes Trismegistus, an archetypal figure of a messenger or translator for the material world to the celestial world and for the celestial world to the material world. He's often depicted as the father of alchemy. This Hermetic philosophy, which emphasized the divine nature of the universe and the power of humans to manipulate natural forces. That last sentence is what drove most ancient spiritual systems, not worship as we're taught today. These cryptic and secret concepts carried the key to manipulating natural forces and what we might term them today as creating your reality. On one level, it's the ancient science of the mind and personal transformation. But through grasping the law of correspondence, it can expand to helping learn the secrets of the universe. The exact origin of alchemy cannot be pinpointed, but historians widely accept that it originated in ancient Egypt, where the term chem, depending on what you want to interpret it, means black land or land of the blacks, likely referred to the Nile River Valley as the birthplace of alchemy. The word chem in both chemistry and alchemy is a prehistoric name for ancient Egypt. You will hear me use the words Egypt and its prehistoric name Kemet interchangeably. Al and El are ancient prefixes that mean divine or sacred. We find the prefixes used in the word alchemy, and the Bible terms such as Elohim. The god of Islam is Allah, and the ancient Egyptian name for Osiris, which was Asar, who was called Al-Asar. This Egyptian name, through linguistic derivations, eventually became the biblical name Lazarus. These ideas did not exist in a vacuum or contain one ultimate truth that others are missing, as so many of us have been led to believe. Alchemy, on one level, means the chemistry of the divine or gods. Again, this has universal application. There is a foundation of knowledge that Judaism, Christianity, Gnosticism, alchemy, and later Islam all share from the ancients. From about the 3rd century BCE to the 2nd century CE, all the systems except Islam that was later developed around the 6th century CE shared the same region in the Mediterranean. Upon study of the basic philosophies and theologies, one can see the common thread of Egyptian cosmology running through them. I'll reference ancient Kemet here because in many cases it can help clarify many ideas, but will also help connect you to other texts that I will help you decode later. It's like putting together a puzzle that gives you a complete picture that you can research for yourself rather than simply accepting what someone says is true or not. The ancients expressed the same basic ideas over the centuries in many different ways through poets, philosophers, theologians, hermeticists, and alchemists. Just like we do in modern literature, these ancient writers would use different literary devices like metaphors, symbolism, imagery, personification, and hyperbole to make their work more memorable. It makes it easier for us to take these writings and use their literary devices literally when we have a bias and belief that the ancients were superstitious and not as advanced in the way that they think about the world. Bias allows us to believe that they could worship part animal and part humans. But could it be our own modern arrogance to think that everything we have today is more advanced that allows us to accept ancient metaphor and hyperbole as literal? These ancient writers interacted with each other, debated philosophy and theology with each other, and borrowed ideas from each other. We do the same thing today. The words and symbols might change to fit their cultures and different time periods, but the foundational principles stayed the same, and they often use literary devices for emphasis in their work. So when you're reading these ancient texts, consider that when someone translates the idea that giants walked among us, or she was angelic in nature, or manna fell from heaven, that it can be simply a poet crafting his work in a way to make it memorable for the ages, not an actual literal or historical event. Alchemy spread to other regions, including Greece, Rome, and Asia. By the late Middle Ages, alchemy had become a well-established discipline, attracting scholars and practitioners who sought to uncover the secrets of nature and transform base metals into gold. But it was not simply physical gold and riches they were after. That was a literal interpretation that many made in error. In the mind of a true alchemist, the physical gold was a symbol of the metaphorical gold of personal transformation. It was symbolically coming into enlightenment about the nature of the universe and the nature of self as the universe in human form. But even trying to transform other materials into physical gold still represented the transformative ability of human consciousness. The law of correspondence was a fundamental aspect of all these ancient systems. Today we see chemistry and alchemy as separate. Physical chemistry has to do with those areas of knowledge which are now considered scientific, and metaphysical chemistry, which was definitely a sacred art. But in its early days, that was not the case. That was because the basic philosophy was the idea of as above, so below. There was no difference in the spiritual world or macrocosm as above, nor the physical world or microcosm as below. That's the way the ancient Egyptians approached it, and pretty much all the ancient world in that 500 or 600 year period from the 3rd century BCE to the 2nd century CE. For the ancient Egyptians, the only difference between above and below was a matter of frequency or vibration. This is important to understand because the ancients used sound like the name of a netter to denote specific universal functions on different levels. For example, the idea or principal cause of fire in the universe was Atum on the theoretical level. Atum as the father, and Yeuseus as the mother, and Yeusa as the primordial fire born from the union, was one trinity at the level of archetypal level of heavens. This same fire was called Heru, who the Greeks call Horus on the level of the Duat, and Nefertum on the terrestrial level. The names all represent an aspect of fire as causal, but the sound of the names denotes the different levels. Because other countries and cultures spoke a different language, they used writing and symbolism to organize and denote the differences in the idea of the three worlds or realms that we will discuss later. You can see a difference in how these realms were expressed in writings from the Hebrew perspective and the Greek perspective. The Hebrews used ideas like angels and ascended beings to denote different realms. The aforementioned Hellenistic period used kingdoms and demigods to classify the realms depending on the specific system. That's the difference between the symbolism and language of a Hebrew text like the Book of Enoch and the original Emerald Tablet. That's the ancient background of alchemy and Hermetic philosophy. Now let's get into specifics about the authentic Emerald Tablet. The world of the Emerald Tablet. What is it exactly? It was created as a guide or framework for anyone beginning the art and science of alchemy or divine chemistry. It's written in the cryptic language of esoteric symbolism. Alchemists used secret and symbolic language because they needed to conceal their knowledge under a series of alchemical or magical symbols and devices. One reason they chose chemistry as a symbolism was because it was accepted by Christian theologians. The church had no direct opposition to the advancement of medical science. But by the Middle Ages, the church viewed metaphysical alchemy as blasphemous, and anyone practicing it could be punished, jailed, or put to death. Remember history about the Crusades and Inquisitions? It was serious if you got identified as someone who was not a believer. On the other hand, the idea of creating literal gold intrigued anyone wanting to get rich. However, if real gold could be created, it would become a threat to destabilize economies, like creating too much money and causing hyperinflation today. Openly revealing the secrets too completely could have been dangerous in those times. The government and the church saw possible threats. Esoteric or secret language was a part of all these systems. They might use a different word to express the same idea. I will help you connect the dots to show you how the same idea is veiled by a different esoteric language. So secret language and symbolism became the means by which alchemists and many others in the ancient world communicated with each other over the centuries, cultures, and geography. Now, let's get into what the ancient Emerald Tablet is expressing. The basic philosophy of the three worlds. Let's first talk about the ancient philosophy or framework the Emerald Tablets is expressing. We live in a world where dogmatic and inflexible beliefs divide humanity. But a little study about ancient philosophy and its origin will yield some illumination on the commonality contained within so many of these ancient systems. There is a foundational philosophy of three worlds or realms that traces back to ancient Egypt that I touched on earlier, explaining how the idea of fire is expressed linguistically. In alchemy, they call these three worlds, number 1, the celestial realm, number 2, the astral realm, and number 3, the material realm, in which our physical body resides while on earth. In ancient Egypt, the three worlds were called the heavens, Duat, and Amenti, also known as the underworld. As stated earlier, different netters reside in different realms within the Egyptian pantheon. Netters, not gods, are personified functions of concepts that are universal. Alchemists, Gnostics, and who later spawned Christianity, and Jews were attempted to communicate these same universal functions in their way. Today, many of us worship the ideas without understanding what they truly mean. I want to enlighten you in this video about those ideas. Here, I'm attempting to help by connecting dots that will illuminate what has been hidden and confusing. I cannot stress enough that all these systems, whether you call them spiritual or religious, share common threads. Let's break these three worlds down and analyze them in everyday language. Analyzing the three worlds. Three fundamental tenets of alchemy and the recurrent philosophy of the ages are these. Number one, the material world is not the only reality. Another hidden level of reality exists that determines our existence. The physical world is a shadow or projection of a higher reality that cannot be grasped by the five senses. Only the higher faculties of the human mind and intuitive intellect can perceive it. Number two, human beings mirror the basic duality of material versus non-material realities. This is the ancient Egyptian idea of anthropocosmos, or humankind as the universe. Most of us have heard the idea that we are made in the image of God. It's the same concept expressed another way. Another modern way to express this same idea is through the analogy of a hologram. If you break off a piece of a hologram, the essence of the whole can still be seen in the piece. Each individual is a holographic piece of the whole. Our material body is subject to the physical laws of birth and death. Our non-material body, we call the soul, is not subject to decay or loss and carries the essence of who we are. The ancient alchemists taught that the soul aspect of our eternal being is analogous to a translator or messenger between the two extremes of the celestial and underworld or earth. Information comes from above, down through the translator or messenger. But the messenger also receives data from our physical personal experiences and translates it for the celestial world. This eternal Ka, or soul, is the divine life force within each of us. Again, back to the idea of anthropocosmos, or being made in the image of the Creator. In ancient Egypt, this was one aspect of the Ka. Alchemy teaches that it is through the reciprocal communication that transformation and adaptations occur on all levels. By understanding this philosophical and archetypal idea of a translator or messenger, you can pierce the veil of so many of the ancient texts and holy books by viewing many of the main characters as messengers. They call them by different names, but they all are styled as teachers, narrators of events, or people struggling to overcome monsters and their adversaries. The one paragraph original Emerald Tablet is a general framework for this foundational principle. I want to stress here that when I say Emerald Tablet, I'm talking about the original and authentic text passed down from antiquity, not the Emerald Tablet of Thoth the Atlantean, a 1930s text written by Claude Doggins, whose pen name was Maurice Doreal. Number three, the third alchemical principle is all human beings possess the capacity to perceive these separate levels of reality, both in themselves and in nature. But we are taught to ignore the subtle clues to the greater reality. The perception and application of this ultimate truth is the goal of human beings and the purpose of our existence. The idea of alchemy is that we gain practical knowledge and the processes of the three worlds to effect change in our daily lives that will impact ourselves at the soul level. It's the dogma of religion that makes the middle world at odds with the lower world. Alchemy was and is about bringing a synergy to all three. Now let's look at the idea of alchemy and why something is hermetically sealed. The idea of merging all three worlds for practical application became a problem for the church in its infancy and in the Middle Ages. By the 6th century CE, Roman Emperor Justinian issued an edict that closed down all the Egyptian temples and mystery schools. Because this knowledge was a threat, anyone promoting these ancient Egyptian and alchemical concepts was in peril. They could literally be put to death. As stated before, in response to the threats from governments and the Roman Catholic Church over the centuries in the West, the Hermeticists use a secret language that, if read by anyone on the outside, would sound acceptable on the surface but carry a deeper meaning for those in the know. Hence, the reason why so many ancient texts were written in cryptic and esoteric language. The term we have today from ancient times is something that is hermetically sealed. It's a misapplication of these ancient texts to take them as literal and or historical. It's only by learning the ancient symbolic and esoteric language that you will begin to rip open the veil of darkness or ignorance. I know this was a long setup, but the background knowledge is needed to help you understand the treasure of knowledge that you have in your hands here. Most people will read it as a curiosity, but I hope I've helped you understand the core of these principles that will empower those who are looking to become creators and masters of the world through grasping the universal laws. So now, let's decode the actual Emerald Tablet. Decoding the Emerald Tablet. First, let's look at the entire Emerald Tablet. It amounts to one long paragraph. I will break down the meaning for you moving forward in detail. But here is the original. "'Tis true, without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracle of one and only thing. And as all things have been and arose from one and by the mediation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father, the moon is its mother. The wind hath carried it in its belly. The earth is its nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force of power is entire if it be converted into earth. Separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, sweetly with great industry. It ascends from the earth to the heaven, and again it descends to the earth and receives the force of things superior and inferior. By this means you shall have the glory of the whole world, and thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. So was the world created from this, and do come admirable adaptations, whereof the means is here in this. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended." That's the end of the original Emerald Tablet. Now we'll get down to breaking down each of these sentences. Part 1. Declaration on all is in all. "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracle of one only thing." This simple but profound statement encapsulates the principle of correspondence, one of the core tenets of Hermetic philosophy. This tenet asserts that there is a harmonic and analogous relationship between different planes of existence, from the material to the spiritual. The phrase "as above, so below" suggests that earthly events and phenomena are reflections of higher spiritual realities. By understanding one, we can understand the other. The miracle of one only thing can be seen as the realization or manifestation of the highest spiritual truth within the material world, which is the essence of alchemy, the transmutation of human ignorance into the golden wisdom of the divine. This principle also reminds us of the unity and interconnectedness of all things, suggesting that by altering our internal states, we can effect change in the external world and vice versa. This idea is part of the defining characteristics of the Egyptian letter of Ma'at and the concept of reciprocity. In other words, what you put out is what you get back. We've heard the same concept in the law of attraction, the idea that thoughts become things. It speaks to the transformative power of understanding the divine nature that binds the universe together, turning base spiritual material into enlightened understanding. This idea is stated in another very simple way within the definition of Hermes as the magician. It's a subtle way of expressing the idea of our ability to create, and the creative force begins within us and manifests the world as life experience. The next line is, and as all things have been and arose from one by mediation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. This sentence speaks to the profound esoteric principle of unity and transformation. It highlights the origin of all existence from a singular source and the method by which reality manifests and diversifies. You can connect the same idea with ancient Neoplatonic theosophy that is esoterically hidden in the Bible. They all were drinking from the same Egyptian well of knowledge. The concept rooted in Hermetic alchemical traditions suggests that everything in the universe originates from a primal, undifferentiated oneness. The ancient Egyptians called this undifferentiated oneness the noon. The mediation of one indicates that a single principle or force enables the differentiation from the one into many. This force acts as a mediator, allowing the undivided essence to manifest in various forms without losing its inherent unity. This idea is symbolized in ancient times as the tree of life, one tree with many branches. The phrase by adaptation brings to light the ability to transform and change, implying that the process of the cosmos are adaptations of a single underlying truth or reality. Consciousness is constantly evolving and adapting. This reflects the idea that the multiplicity of forms and phenomena in the world are not separate from their source, but are variations adapted from a single principle. It mirrors the process of evolution and adaptation in nature, where diverse species and forms arise from a common ancestor through adaptation to their environments. Philosophically, this statement can be seen as an affirmation of the unity of existence and the potential of rediscovering the unity through spiritual transformation. It encourages an understanding that all diversity in the world is a manifestation of one divine reality, which can be realized through the pursuit of wisdom and the practice of alchemy, transmuting the lead of ignorance into the gold of enlightenment. This idea of creating gold is what got a lot of alchemists into trouble. They took the idea literally. But the true concept was how the impure could be separated from the pure. Gold was symbolically represented by the sun, which was light, or the wisdom of enlightenment. The impure is the strife of life that causes us the pain and fears. For example, it is sifting through the pain of a bad relationship that teaches you something powerful and beautiful about yourself that causes you to grow from it. The pain was the lead that was transmuted into enlightenment or gold. This understanding bridges the metaphysical with the physical, suggesting by comprehending the divine source, one can perceive the sacred in all aspects of life. By going within, one can gain access to the knowledge of the universe. Next, let's look at part 2. So, part 2, the soul or messenger and its power. So this is the next line. It says, the sun is its father, the moon is its mother. The wind hath carried it in its belly. The earth is the nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force of power is the entire, if it be converted into earth. This sentence gets into the esoteric language of expressing the soul and how it comes into being. So let's break it down. So the sun is its father, the moon is its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth is its nurse. That single concept this sentence expresses is done over and over in different ancient texts and systems in so many ways, metaphorically and through mythology. This is another way of secretly expressing the four elements as fire, air, water, and earth. You see this idea symbolized in the ancient image of Hermes Trismegistus standing beside the sun and the moon. It's all the metaphorical elements needed for a soul to be born into the physical experience or cross from the metaphysical into the physical world. The moon becomes the abstract opposite of the dual pair as the feminine aspect in water. The wind is the metaphor for the breath of life or spirit. The ancient Egyptians called this the Ba, and the earth as the nurse becomes the metaphor for matter or the material world. In this context, the physicality is what nurtures the spark or fire. Matter becomes a mother that envelops the soul with the possibility of becoming enlightened through life experiences. But this matter or body can also be the symbolic tomb for someone who does not awaken to their true self. In ancient Egypt, they called that the second death. In the Bible, Lazarus became the symbol for someone who is dead or asleep to who they are as a soul. Dead and asleep in the Bible, for example, are euphemisms for someone who is consciously unaware. Even today, we call a consciously aware person woke. The next line says, "The Father of all perfection in the whole world is here." This phrase suggests that the ultimate source of all completeness and spiritual realization is found within this alchemical process and framework. It emphasizes that the perfection of the cosmos and the microcosm is accessible through understanding and applying these principles. The next line says, "Its force or power is entire if it be converted into earth." This line highlights the culmination of the alchemical work, the conversion of the volatile, metaphysical, or intangible into the stable, material, or tangible. It suggests that true power and potential are realized when spiritual insight is fully integrated into the physical experience, embodying enlightenment in everyday life. The term vibration can be easily swapped for force. The difference between any of these three worlds mentioned earlier is the subtle frequency. We are able to merge vibrationally with the three different worlds. Vibration is the organizing principle of the universe. It is an aspect of Ra in ancient Egypt. In the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, or Coming Forth by Day, Ra states, "I am Ra, I am the eternal, I am the Word, I created the Word." In this case, the Word, or the Greek logos of John 1:1 in the Bible, it has a number of metaphorical layers. But let's extract one meaning. What does a vocal cord have to do to create a word? Answer, it has to vibrate. That's the metaphorical meaning of the word. That's one interpretation of what the ancients call a seal. I just unpacked that one simple phrase and connected it to Christianity, Gnosticism, and science. That's how these ancient passages like the Emerald Tablet work. Trying to make them mean one single thing, like a literal historical interpretation, becomes a blinder and limitation to incorporating the knowledge into your daily life and broader context for humanity. The ideas transcend any one system of thought or belief. Overall, this passage from the Emerald Tablet speaks to the profound transformation that's possible when the soul self, represented by the sun, moon, wind, and earth, are harmoniously integrated through life experience. It points to the alchemist's goal of achieving perfection through the union of these elements within oneself, ultimately leading to the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, the symbol of ultimate wisdom and immortality in alchemy. It's symbolized as a stone because once reached, it's a permanent state of being for the soul. This idea of the Philosopher's Stone is subtly and esoterically alluded to in the Bible. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 18, the archetypal messenger Jesus says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it." If you look up the origin of the name Peter, you will see that it comes from the Greek word Petra, which means rock or stone. The word church can be translated as temple, which is symbolically the body. Hades is the Greek word for the underworld or earth. It's the same philosophical principle of the idea of the Philosopher's Stone, stated in two different ways in texts from two different systems, that both existed around the same time frame in the same Mediterranean region. The metaphorical understanding can be applied to personal spiritual growth, where integrating different aspects of oneself leads to wholeness and enlightenment. Now, the next passage states, "Separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, sweetly with great industry. It ascends from the earth to the heaven, and again it descends to the earth and receives the force of things superior and inferior." It provides a rich metaphorical framework within the alchemical tradition, emphasizing the process of purification, transformation, and integration of the spiritual life and experience of the material realm. So let's look at this esoterically. So breaking it down line by line now. So separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross. This instruction involves the alchemical process of purification and separation. Earth and fire symbolically represent the material and spiritual or energetic aspects of nature, respectively. Separating the subtle from the gross involves distilling the essence, the subtlety, from the matter, gross, akin to extracting the spirit from the body or the essence from the mundane. This is often performed through processes that metaphorically use fire to transform or purify substances, refining what is spiritual or essential from what is physical or base. But this is done through living life. When you go through the fires of life and come through them, you gain wisdom. That's the purification process on a personal level. We oftentimes want to make these concepts different from simply living life. But the ancient alchemists saw material life as a means to enrich the development of the soul, not life as an adversary, as religions and many spiritual systems will set up. Rather than giving you tools to create harmony within, they create conflict and strife. Life is your mirror, your reflection, your feedback system for developing who you are. This goes back to the idea of correspondence. The other part of as above, so below is as within, so without. It connects back to the ancient Egyptian idea of living ma'at and reciprocation. The next line is sweetly and with great industry. This phrase suggests that the process of separation and purification should be done carefully, diligently, and patiently, emphasizing the need for meticulous and sustained effort. One must be consistent and diligent in their practice. You can't read a book or watch a video one time and that's it. I got it. No, it is using the tools and processes every single day. The word sweetly implies a gentle, thoughtful approach, indicating that the transformation should not be forced, but allowed to unfold naturally and harmoniously. The next line is, "It ascends from the earth to the heaven." This ascent represents spiritualization or elevation of the material, raising the refined essence of spirit from the lower, earthly material conditions to the higher, celestial or spiritual states. Biblically, this idea represented the miracle of Jesus turning water into wine. Our bodies is 70% water, but the ancients represented our conscious elevation going through the fire of the fermentation process as growing in wisdom. That's the esoteric meaning of the supposed biblical miracle. In reality, you can decode the esoteric meaning of the miracle when you know the ancient Egyptian esoteric keys. This line in the emerald tablet symbolizes the journey of the soul or consciousness ascending towards divine or higher wisdom. The next line we have is, "And again it descends to the earth and receives the force of things superior and inferior." After reaching the heights of spiritual realization, the essence must return to the material plane. This descent symbolizes the integration of spiritual insights back into everyday life. By returning, the essence imbues the material or inferior with the virtues of the spiritual or superior, harmonizing the high and low, the heavenly and the earthly. Through life experience, this return is about being receptive to its subtle cues, being open to listening and surrendering to higher guidance. This cyclical movement reflects the idea that true wisdom involves not only transcendence, but also the return and application of that higher knowledge in the world. The next line is, receives the force of things superior and inferior. This suggests that through the process of ascending and descending, the essence or the alchemical work absorbs and integrates both celestial and terrestrial influences. It embodies the principle that enlightenment or progress comes from the balance and unity of all aspects of existence, spiritual and material, high and low, inner and outer. This underscores the mystical belief that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm and that inner transformation leads to outer change. Part 3. Instructions. The next line is, by this means you shall have the glory of the whole world, and thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. This statement implies that through the practice of alchemy, or the metaphysical principles it symbolizes, one can attain enlightenment or the glory of the whole world. The glory here represents profound spiritual insights and universal wisdom. The phrase, all obscurity shall fly from you, suggests that ignorance, misunderstanding, and the shadows of unenlightenment are dispelled through this knowledge. It speaks to the transformative power of the esoteric wisdom to illuminate and clarify one's understanding of life and reality. The next line is, its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. This line describes the supreme power of the alchemical substance or the philosopher's stone, metaphorically representing the ultimate truth or spiritual principle. It's described as more potent than any other force because it can overcome or vanquish even the most elusive, intangible, or subtle realities, and can permeate or understand or penetrate the most opaque, tangible, or solid forms. This speaks to the capacity of the true spiritual insight to transcend and transform all levels of existence, from the most metaphysical concepts to the most concrete realities. The next line is, so was the world created. This concluding phrase connects the described process to the act of creation itself, suggesting that the principles embodied by the alchemical work are not just methods for personal transformation, but are indeed fundamental to the nature of the universe. It implies that the universe was created through a process analogous to alchemical transmutation, a transformation from the primordial chaos, the prima materia of alchemy, to the ordered chaos driven by a fundamental and omnipotent force. The next line is, from this and do come admirable adaptations. This phrase suggests that from the process or principle being discussed, likely the fundamental operation of alchemy or spiritual equivalent, numerous admirable adaptations arise. In alchemy, these adaptations could refer to the various transformations and creations achievable through alchemical processes, whether turning base metals into gold, discovering the elixir of life, or achieving spiritual enlightenment. More broadly, it implies that the profound understanding of universal laws enables various wonderful and beneficial changes or adaptations in material as well as spiritual realms. The next line is, whereof the means is here in this. This part of the sentence points to the immediate availability and accessibility of knowledge and methods necessary to achieve these transformations. It suggests that the means and methods required for these admirable adaptations are not distant or beyond reach, but are contained within the teachings or practices being referenced. This aligns with the Hermetic philosophy that wisdom and knowledge about the fundamental nature of reality are not only keys to personal spiritual advancement, but also catalysts for broader, tangible changes in your life. Part 4. Identifying the messenger. This next line, hence, I am called Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus, or thrice-great Hermes, is a legendary figure who combines the attributes of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, both deities of writing, magic, and wisdom. They are both archetypal expressions of the function of the soul as a translator or messenger. This function we call the human mind today. The title Trismegistus, meaning thrice-great, underscores this profound mastery and authority over spiritual and esoteric knowledge. The next line, having three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. This phrase reveals why Hermes is deemed thrice-great. It implies that he possesses comprehensive knowledge spanning three fundamental aspects or dimensions of universal philosophy. These three parts can be interpreted in various ways depending on the esoteric tradition. Within alchemy, it can refer to the tria prima or trinity of alchemy, sulfur, mercury, and salt, representing the three parts that comprise the soul. Hermes, or the human psyche, is the result of this trinitarian union. Hermes as an archetype and his mastery over these suggests the human mind's ability to understand and transform the fundamental aspects of both material and metaphysical existence. His mastery represents our potential mastery, the ability to recognize oneself as the creator of your reality. That's the magical part of his characteristics, the magician in the tarot deck. Part 5, the ending. The last line is, that which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended. This is a declaration of completion regarding the alchemical process, particularly focusing on the transformative actions attributed to the symbolic nature of the sun as a metaphor for the fire or intellect of the creator within each of us. This statement can be seen as a metaphorical commitment to the journey of personal transformation. Just as the sun passes through its daily course from the sunrise to sunset, completing a cycle, so does the alchemist, or any spiritual seeker, undergo a transformative journey that eventually reaches completion. In esoteric spirituality, this completion represents a full understanding or mastery of the inner workings of oneself that is reflected in the universe, leading to a state of spiritual awakening or enlightenment. It represents empowerment and victory over your fears or anything that's holding you back from being the best version of yourself. In summary, this sentence confirms the successful completion of a significant process, be it alchemical, spiritual, or philosophical. It emphasizes the achievement of a higher state of being or understanding, as guided by the principles of transformation symbolized by the sun. This mirrors the broader Hermetic principle of transformation and evolution toward constant progression, reflecting the eternal cycle of death and rebirth, dissolution and coagulation that characterize both the alchemical work and the spiritual journey. Now, this is the end of the original Emerald Tablet translated. I hope it's helpful for you. Please take these resources and begin to discover for yourself. You have that power now. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share with anyone who would be consciously enlightened and vibrationally uplifted by this.